Well, thank you, people. Thanks to our musical interlude opening up today. On second thought, just like it says right here, on second thought. Today, I'm here with a guest we've had several times, I know, fourth, fifth time, Michael WARNKEN. Welcome back, Michael.
Thank you for having me.
I am happy to have you because you got to observe corruption in the process in RiverSide County this morning. This morning, which is Friday, what, the 7th of November?
Got me somewhere around there.
7th, 8th of November, whatever it is. We're down there. I had put in a media request. And the media request was simply to tape item number 4 on Judge Mathew C. Peratoni. Nice, smiling, happy face there on Judge Mathew C. Peratoni. And he both granted and denied the media request. Now, I've never seen this before. And I put out probably something just under 100 media requests to tape things. And about half the time they're granted. But they always inform me with a return letter saying your media request is granted. In this case, it was on the clerk's record as granted, but nobody informed me. When I got there, the bailiff said it's been denied. So we got the actual paperwork. We went to the clerk, didn't we?
Yeah.
We went to the clerk of RiverSide County Courthouse, and she said, oh, I got the minute order. I said, can I have a copy? I want to know why it was denied. She said, it wasn't denied, it was granted.
Yeah.
Michael's my witness. He was there. There was another witness too, but she's not with us. And I said, well, if it's granted, how come the bailiff's telling me I couldn't tape in court and it's denied? She says, well, it says right here, and I'll print it out. And she did. And we have that printout with us here. And you're going to see it in the tape we're going to go to. Now, what this case starts out about is this woman. She's like past 65. Her husband has died. She's elderly. She's a retired real estate agent that was pretty good at making a little money in real estate. Her house was paid for, free and clear. And she belonged in the planned development...
Planned unit development, PUD.
PUD, where they had single-family homes, but they owned a park in commons. And so they had certain restrictions, and they had a board of supervisors or trustees for the...
Board of directors.
Board of directors for the PUD. And a new bunch got in, and they suddenly decided they weren't going to take turns cutting the grass at the community park. They were just going to farm it out to somebody else and let them do it and pay them an outrageous fee for just mowing the grass. Where they could have probably got a local neighborhood kid and said, here's 40 bucks this week, go cut the grass. And everybody would have been just as happy the grass got cut in the park. Okay? That's how this started 10 years ago. Then she noticed that the trustees were paying themselves an outrageous salary to just hire and pick someone to get paid outrageously to mow the grass. And she made some objections. She and another person finally made so much objection they were forced to file a lawsuit. Then, if I understand her story correctly, Teddy then got countersued by them, and then they got flim-flammed into court, and then they said, okay, now you owe us all these attorney's fees, and the attorney's fees were
$50,000.
$55,000. I even had $100 an hour out in RiverSide County. I can't believe their attorney had 55 hours of work on this. It's not believable.
Well, 550 hours a week.
550 hours.
At 100 an hour, whatever.
$100 an hour. I don't believe even put in 50 hours of work on it. But then they come after and they say, okay, now we're assessing you for all our fees that you caused us because you objected to us outrageously paying ourselves and outrageously paying someone else who's probably connected to the Board of Trustees.
Yeah.
I don't know that for a fact, but that's
probably.
That's how these things go. And the end result is the courts just rubber stamp and say, okay, you got to pay them. You got to pay them. And she loses in court. Her husband dies. The other person who was helping her with this drops out of the picture, just doesn't want anything to do with it anymore, for obvious reasons. And then she goes into bankruptcy court and gets Judge Mark Hoole, who 2 weeks ago I argued with for a half hour over his denial of my media request. On the same day, my media request to tape an argument by Orly Tates, a dentist and attorney in the 4th District Appellate Court in Orange County in Santa Ana, was approved. So I was approved by the appeals court down there, but this chubby-cheeked judge doesn't think I should be taping in his courtroom. And it's just a little tiny courtroom, not much bigger than the studio.
Yeah.
Really, not much bigger than this studio.
And there was no reason for the denial given?
There was no reason for the denial given, but on the back sheet, he checked off denial. But on the front, it's typed by the clerk, granted. So if you call them and ask them, is my immediate request granted? They have to say yes. It says right here on this computer, yes, it was granted. But when I got there, they said, no, it's denied. And they never notified me. And I put it in like 2.5, 3 weeks ago. So they had lots of time to send me a letter saying it's either granted or it's denied.
And when you were standing out in the hallway, you just pulled your camera out. You weren't even showing it, and a bailiff goes by. Hey, you can't show that.
No taping in the courthouse.
I couldn't believe how aggressive he was about it.
He was real aggressive, and all I was doing is putting a blank tape in, preparing to tape, hoping and believing that actually we had everything ready to go.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to get Teddy Sheldon, this elderly woman who's been flim-flammed out of her house. She didn't attack anybody. She didn't steal anything from anybody. She didn't harm anybody. But this homeowners association, controlled by a group who I did contact one member who lived across the street, and boy, he didn't want to be on camera. We're not going to show you his face today, but we might later as we dig into the dirt under this dirty hat, not my hat, but their hat. But something doesn't smell right down there in Riverside. But the most impressive thing, when you walk up to that courthouse, what do you think of, Michael?
The place looked like a palace. Riverside, I can't say anything bad about Riverside. It's not Santa Barbara.
We're just talking about the county courthouse.
Yeah, the county itself is certainly more urban. And the courthouse looked like a palace. It looked like something you'd see in Venice or Milan or something like that.
I said Vienna. The interior hallways were arched and curved 50, 60 feet above you.
Yeah.
And the walls and the columns inside the courthouse hallway where you enter looked like you were in the Palace of Versailles, or the Schönbrunn Palace in Austria. I've never seen a courthouse so clean, so meticulously painted, not a fingerprint on the wall from any defendant or plaintiff or anybody. And you knew you were dealing with a different kind of courthouse just walking in there. I mean, I've been into a lot of courthouses. I've been in 32 or 36 states, different courthouses, and sometimes 7 or 8 different county courthouses in these many states. I've been in almost 1/3 of all the California courthouses. I've been inside for one case or another. Not for myself as a plaintiff or defendant, but just putting in media requests and observing and taping what's going on to show you how corrupt the system is. Am I overemphasizing to say the system is corrupt?
No, not by a long shot. What was interesting, when we got into that courtroom, they quickly went into the hearing real fast, so you didn't have an opportunity to even ask if your media request had been granted or denied. So it was quick to get to the hearing, and he moved really fast on Teddy's case. And it was interesting. She objected right away because there was somebody who was appearing who wasn't really a party.
Yeah, that was another thing. In this case, she was simply suing today for the escrow company to give her a copy of the escrow papers for the sale of her house, which she had no part of. They just took it and sold it and evicted her from her house that was paid for free and clear. This is not like a mortgage foreclosure and sale. The house was paid, it was free and clear, no debt. And yet, this year, they send her the tax bill. She's still holding it in her hand, and the judge doesn't want to see it. He doesn't want to see any of her evidence, and he even says, doesn't he?
Yeah.
She gave me this. Did your other parties get a copy of this? No. Is there any objection? Do I hear any? He's like, please, object.
Yeah, he was basically asking for an objection, and it was funny because the two attorneys, they didn't actually catch on to the hint. One attorney appeared by telephone, and the other attorney was actually in court. And he said, any objections? Is there any objections? And neither of them bit. And so he said, okay, so I'm now reading this.
This face kept asking, this chubby little judge face here, 51-year-old judge Mathew C. Peratoni.
Yeah.
He's asking for an objection because he doesn't want anything on the record. And Tony.
Yeah.
He's asking for an objection because he doesn't want anything on the record. And neither attorney caught it. One is on the phone, and that's the one that should have been in the courtroom.
And the other guy who was in the courtroom said, and there's a media request, and I wasn't aware of that. So he was letting the guy...
Yeah, he was telegraphing the message to the guy on the phone, the other attorney, who should have been. And there's a media request in here that I wasn't told about.
So there's somebody from the media watching.
Right.
You know, so be careful of what you say.
They were really upset that I was even there in this red silk shirt and ready to open up my equipment and start taping the screwing this woman, this elderly woman, got in front of this chubby-cheeked judge.
And all she's asking for is just the basically the escrow, you know, which you know
she's entitled to. It's
her
house.
Yeah, what she's entitled to, and of course my interest would be the HUD-1, which is basically all the disbursements. Let's see where all the cash went, because one of the things she was asking for was her homestead, which was $150,000. So even if they'd sold it out from underneath her, and even if she really did owe all the equity that was in it, she would still be entitled to the $150,000, which they weren't going to give her.
Yeah.
So the question was, we'd like to at least see who this money's going to, and which, for goodness sakes, they would not want to show us or anybody else, because that would amount to proof. Right. So you have a judge who's denied a media order, who is also denying, who's allowed parties who have attorneys and who aren't even parties to the action, and they're denying her access to her own paperwork that they sold her own house, in which she's still receiving a tax bill for. So,
and this cute, chubby-cheeked judge, he just doesn't even want anything taped, anything on the court record. And after he was done, he said, okay, well, there's no evidence before us. What?
Yeah.
There's no evidence before us, so this case is dismissed. Next case.
Yeah.
And she still argues. So wait a minute. Anyway, we interviewed her. This is from this morning, today, in 200 miles north of Riverside, or more, 200 miles, right? 200, maybe 230, 40 miles north of Riverside in Santa Maria and Santa Barbara County. Let's see the interview. And notice the Lady Justice on the courthouse. That's the inside. Those are arches I was telling you about on the inside. Now this is the outside of the...
Yeah, it looks like a palatial estate.
It looks like a palace in Vienna.
Lady Justice doesn't have a...
Lady Justice is not blind in this courthouse.
Watch, we're going to go up and you'll see a shot of Lady Justice holding the scales on top. Yeah, and they got these little lions posted all around the courthouse, these little lion motifs. You can see more on the wall all the way around. They're there like guarding, keeping justice out. That was my impression. And this was built back in 1903. But I'm not sure they had all these fancy stuff on the roof in 1903. But this is the sort of thing you'd see in Vienna, with expensive architecture and expensive statues on a roof exposed to the elements. And there's Michael. We're getting ready to do an interview with Michael, and you'll see Teddy Sheldon walks right up here, and we'll flash her name when she gets between us, so that you
County
can...
Courthouse with Michael WARNKEN. Michael, you observed the case in front of Judge Mathew C. Peratoni today.
Yes.
It was in the case of Teddy Sheldon versus C21. What was your uptake on what you saw here today?
I was kind of disappointed. The judge sort of hurried the case through. He didn't really address anything, and he certainly didn't explain, at least to Teddy or anybody else watching, why he denied her motion.